Welcome to Shit to Giggle, a podcast on the road. We'll make you laugh and cry. Please subscribe and download. For those easily offended, we hope that you get AIDS.
Hey guys, that's what my son says with he recorded a video on my phone. He goes, "Hey guys." So cute.
I hope you
welcome
understand.
back.
That's the start of our podcast.
Yeah, welcome back to Shit and Giggle. We're recording this episode the same time as the other episode.
Yep.
This week, and I have a topic that's very heavy,
Oh boy.
if you will.
Good thing we're drinking
Yes.
already in.
So, obviously, COVID has not gone away. Not like that we thought it would. It's still going on.
How dare you steal my topic idea that I wanted to
Is that
do
what
a
you
couple
were
of days
thinking?
ago?
Um,
Okay.
I didn't really want to talk about it just because,
that's-
not that I'm not sensitive about the subject, because you obviously know.
Well, we can get into that if you want to
Yeah.
later on. But I do understand. I'm ready for this. Absolutely.
What was it like at the beginning of COVID for you? Like when everything shut down? Because I heard things in like December, November of 2019. And I had people saying that, oh, we're afraid that, this virus is going to head over to America. And I was one of those people that was just like, no way.
Right.
I mean, it's going to stay over there,
Well,
but...
And even a lot of us didn't even know that it was going on pretty much till February, March time. So conveniently,
Yep.
I met my wife
Mm-hmm.
in November 2019.
Okay.
We moved in together. I moved up into Dayton late December
Okay.
2019.
Okay.
And later got married May 2020.
Okay.
Very quick. But it was odd because like right after we moved in, I want to say a month later, we got Apollo, our oldest dog, and then we couldn't go anywhere.
Yep.
And so we were like, oh shit.
Mm-hmm.
I was working for a company at the time. I moved up here, worked for her father-in-law at a company called who is a distribution for
Okay.
they're kind of like us, but just their distribution for gas stations.
Okay.
So they were fine for a while, but I wanted to make more money. And so I moved out of there, worked for a company and they were a concrete formwork company, which I'm probably going to bleep all that out, by the way. I'm probably going to bleep all those company
Yeah,
names
that's fair.
out. But that's fine. And when I worked there, that was the craziest thing because so we would do I'll keep all this in. We'll do concrete formwork.
Mm-hmm.
So our building, for example, where we work, concrete walls, right? How they're massive and they're flat.
Mm-hmm.
So they use forms and they put them on the outside, pour the concrete, perfectly flat wall. We would prepare those forms, clean up. My job to clean them off, get them prepped, organize orders for companies. So technically, we were an essential workplace because they were still building hospitals, freeways. So technically, they considered us essential.
Yeah.
So we never stopped.
Okay.
But the craziest thing is we would sit there. I remember work would be so slow. We would sit there and we would huddle around like in like December, January time. We would huddle around like the radio or the TV and just wait and be like, they're sending construction people home. They're going to send, nope, damn it. And we'd go home. But the craziest thing was, and Hannah can remember this, I was working one day. We would go in at like 5 a.m. And we were there. And this one guy, don't remember his name, he wasn't there that day. And we're like, huh. And this was right when like COVID finally got serious. Like people are dying. The death is skyrocketing.
Yeah.
It got scary. And come to find out, we found out 3 days after this day, he had gotten COVID.
Mm-hmm.
But we were like, okay. He was sick the whole week before he was here. He was like, yeah, well, he's had COVID for 2 weeks. But he told us a week late, and so we then sent him home. And I'm like, so you're still, and we don't like, we have to work together because these are like steel form work. They're heavy. Team lifting, like maybe 3 to 4 people lifting stuff. So you're in very close proximity with people. Like if I cough on you and I have the flu, you're getting it. Like
Right.
didn't tell anybody. Just let it happen. And we're like, you're kidding me. Like, and you're not gonna like have us all tested? No, you'll be fine.
Were you guys masked up though during
No,
this time?
we couldn't be because of like people would pass out because even though it was in December, we were all in sleeveless because we were right next to a forgery that was like
I see.
hundreds of degrees. So like we would pass out from heat exhaustion. So we didn't really do that. And if we were going to, we might as well have gone home because we were so close together. But didn't tell anybody. And so we all looked at each other and were like, you're kidding me? Call the guy Joe. Like, Joe got COVID and you're not going to tell anybody? It's ridiculous. And we all looked at each other and were like, we're not coming in. Like, this is bullshit. You're just not going to tell people? And then we found out they just started dropping like flies at our workplace. We were a building of maybe 50 people, and that was every shift. There was only one shift. It was everybody, 50 people, upper management, lower management. There was no other warehouses. It was just that building. And then it went down, I think, within 2 weeks to 30. Then it was 25. And we just kept slowly losing people. Our boss, the head guy, ended up getting COVID. And we're like, we're screwing this. I quit. I'm like, I can't do this. Like, you're not going to give us leave. You're not going to get us tested. You're not doing anything to really prevent anything. I remember towards the end, they finally started cleaning, like getting routine cleaners. And I'm like, this is bullshit. It's ridiculous. And so then I found, I just started doing DoorDash and Instacart, which was a saving grace because at that time, that's anybody. That's how you got food.
Right.
I mean, because you weren't, at that point, we finally weren't allowed to get into the grocery stores. We couldn't go anywhere. Yeah.
Right.
So it was a heavy, like domino after domino after domino effect for me and Hannah because we moved in together. She lost her job, actually. Didn't lose her job. She worked for Bob Evans.
Okay.
And so she's not essential. She's a restaurant, and so they sent a lot of people home. And she was mostly, she was a manager. So they don't really need a manager on the floor the whole time when your whole building's shut down. So they cut her hours in half. And she was honestly the breadwinner for a long time in our family. She made $18.50 an hour, but would work 80-hour weeks. So she'd bring home
good money.
ridiculous amount of money. Overtime, manager pay, all that kind of stuff, and tips. She'd still make tips as doing carryout. So that was crazy. And like I had never been in a situation where it's like, hey, you could just not have work tomorrow. And it's not that you didn't want to go in, you can't. And that was really scary to me because especially moving, I had never moved away from my family. I had always stayed in Columbus, and moving out all the way to Springfield, even though it was 45 minutes, was a big deal. And then for the government to basically take a shit was terrifying to me because I had lost my comfort, and now I'm in a desert with no fucking shoes, and you're like, hey, figure it out.
Yep.
So it was scary, definitely. What about you?
So I worked for, I'm not going to name the company because I still, it's kind of like one of those things that you don't want to badmouth something.
You can name it, but bleep it out.
No, I'm not even going to say it.
Okay.
It was the last job I had before the one that we both work at. We built the rear units for an HVAC unit for
you told me about
for
this
the
company.
Buick Enclave, the Chevy Suburban, the Cadillac Escalade. Just a very small unit that contained a heater core and a evaporator. Couple doors, couple actuators to move those doors. You probably understand what I'm telling you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And wiring harness, and then we sent it to wherever the factory was, whether it was, I think we were a GM line. The line next to us was a Chrysler line, and they built parts for the Jeep Grand Cherokee, and then I also worked on the line that basically made the front HVAC unit for the Chrysler Town and Country that I currently drive. So, initially, when we all heard about COVID, and we were hearing rumors that the plant was going to shut down that we worked at, and we didn't know whether or not that was true, but we knew that we were going to be filing for unemployment if that happened. And when we got the news, we were all told that we were going to have to go home and we would file for unemployment. I filed immediately, and I started receiving unemployment assistance or whatever immediately, like the following week.
Wow.
All
we got was, I think, food stamps.
A lot of people weren't that lucky.
Right.
A lot of people didn't get their money until 6-7 months later. But I started working 84 hours a week for a long time at the job. And then we all got raises, and I was working 68 hours, but making the same amount of money. And when I got unemployment, I was making that money. Because what they did is they didn't base it off an 84-hour work week or a 68-hour work week. They based it off a 40-hour work week. And then there was the bonuses that the government was giving everybody that was on unemployment. Not everybody, but most people.
Right.
Of course, I'm speaking from my personal experience. Not
Yeah.
And that was enough to pay all our bills, to buy food in the house and different things like that. So we were living pretty good, and we were watching the news constantly. Mike DeWine, who's still our current governor, he would have basically, a news conference almost every single day.
To piggyback off of that, a lot of people gave him a bad rep for the way he handled it. I think
he handled it fantastic.
He handled COVID, I would say, honestly, probably the best out of every other governor that I've heard.
Yeah. And the best way for something that was just brand new to us.
Oh, yeah, constant updates.
A once in 100-year.
Because if I'm correct,
pandemic.
wasn't it like every day, if not twice a day sometimes, that he would come on the news and it would be
Yeah.
routine?
Yeah.
And it was so nice.
Because a lot of people forget that people actually died. People were getting sick constantly.
Yeah, because, some people are like, COVID's not real. Say that to the people who are dead now.
Yeah. It's... and there are people also that suffered, effects of it. We know people that still don't have their taste and smell.
Yeah. Yeah. My mom and father, didn't tell you this. My dad also got it.
No, he did recently.
Yeah. Which, right now. He has it right now.
Yeah.
So my mom ended up getting it. And she called me the other day. She's doing better now. No taste again, and what the even scarier part now, right? So, sorry, interrupt you,
cool.
but
you're cool.
Vaccines, boosters came out, right? I don't know about you. I have my vaccines, both doses, and my booster.
Yep, me too.
I forget what I have. The brand. What do you have?
I think I have Pfizer.
I get Pfizer. Okay, I have Pfizer. I think that's what my parents got. Still got it. I think they've got, this is their third time.
Yeah.
And they still got it afterwards.
Doesn't mean that you won't get it, but
Right.
you can fight it off better.
Oh, yeah. Well, the scariest thing is, like, my dad, you've met my dad.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, his immune system isn't, like, down the shitter like some other conditions that people have. But anybody who doesn't know me, my father is in a wheelchair. He has neuropathy. So from his legs down, he has lost kind of sensation, if you will. His nerves are unraveling and causing severe pain, but it also does take a small shit on your immune system, and it's very scary.
Yeah.
Because it is one of those things that, like, even like the flu, if you have a low immune system, could kill you, let alone coronavirus. And so it was really scary to hear that, and he looks like shit. I went over and I was there today from the sidewalk, and he rolled up, and you would have thought that, he was stage 4 cancer. Like he looked terrible. He sounded terrible. I'm surprised he got down the stairs to even get into his chair. But yeah, so like, it's especially scary when you have people like that, who have medical conditions already that, like, for you and me, if we got COVID tomorrow, I'm gonna go lay down, drink some water, maybe pop an Advil and ride it through. But then there's people like, my mom and dad and my grandparents that if they get them,
Yep.
it's terrifying.
So we're off. My factory laid us all off that I was working at. And my wife still worked. She was an in-home
Grown.
care aide. So she had someone who was, well, I don't want to name ailments or what they went through, but she was taking care of a couple people. And, she was afraid that if, the kids were at school, which they weren't at the time, but if I went anywhere or if the kids did go back to school, that she could somehow bring that virus over there. And those people, out of anybody, were the people that we were looking out for.
Oh, right.
Like,
yeah.
Elderly people that, basically they need help constantly. And if they were to get sick, it could be fatal for them. Unless they were vaccinated.
Yeah. Which even then, I mean.
But I mean, for the most part, vaccines working. We'll get into that. We'll get into that detail towards the end because there's a reason why we're talking about this.
Right.
But after 3 months, and we're doing great. Financially, we're doing as great as we were.
Now, did you? Speaking of that, because it's brought up, were you living in your house that you're in now?
Yeah.
So I know they did a thing, rent forgiveness.
Yes.
Did they do anything with mortgages as well?
So they had a forbearance program.
Oh.
And the problem, though, is that it was basically like I paid my mortgage every month.
Right.
During that time, because with unemployment, I actually made enough to pay that.
Okay. Did you get food from the government too?
Yes, at the time.
Okay.
But I did not make enough money as soon as I went back to work. And so I was able to continue that forbearance plan, even though I had paid it up on time. And I actually wasn't able to afford to get caught back up. I had to refinance my house.
Okay. Because our big thing, we kind of got into a rut like that, but we were renting.
So
we got a month waived.
Right. So when I went back to work, I'm making $600 less a week.
Oh, geez. What was that from?
Well, there was no overtime.
Cuttage. Okay, so it was cutting.
So we're
hours.
building car parts, right? And there was a there's a huge chip shortage also. Yeah. This particular chip that these cars needed. All these cars sitting in parking lots, just because they didn't have the chip.
I remember watching because my grandfather works for Reichard, and he would tell me, he's like, dude, we have parking lots.
Yeah,
like they had to buy extra parking lots of cars that would just sit.
Yep. And so it took me a long time. I mean, I was door dashing. Also, I got to add this little ditty. So as soon as we went to unemployment, I thought, okay, maybe I can use my car for DoorDash. Maybe I can make some extra money. But I knew that if I worked with DoorDash, I would have to count those wages towards that. But I did. I tried. And then my car took a shit. Right at the beginning of the pandemic.
This was the Civic?
Yes. No, Accord.
Oh, yeah.
I had a Honda Accord. Yeah. And so after that, I was like, okay, well, I can't use this for DoorDash, so I have no choice but to accept unemployment. And we did have another vehicle, and I did apply at other jobs. Of course, nobody was hiring because everybody shut down.
Right.
So when I went back to work, now we're down to one vehicle. So it basically
the vehicle you have now?
Yes. I switched to a first shift so that my wife could work in the evenings, um, which was, you know, anyway.
Right.
So that year, 2020, um, it's crazy. That year, 2020, we go to, it was around December, and we have a 2-week vacation at my job. It's paid. It's 40 hours a week, but it's paid.
December 2020?
Yeah.
You weren't working for where we work now yet?
Huh?
You weren't working for where we work now?
No.
Wow.
Remember, this is the year of the pandemic.
Wait, you haven't hit your year mark?
I have. It's 2022.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm a little behind. Anyways.
So December, right around that time, bills are paid for the most part, but we're starting to get behind, simply because I'm not making the money that I used to make.
Right.
Before, like I was making the same amount of money before the pandemic as I was on unemployment. Then unemployment gets cut. I'm making $600 less a week. So that's $2,400 less a month.
It's a lot.
The bigger picture.
It's a lot.
So my mortgage at the time was $1,600 a month. And I had a car payment of $400. So that's $2,000 right there.
Right.
And then, we're trying to put food in the house, pay all utilities. I got it done. It wasn't easy, but I got it done. And thankfully, my wife was also had a job that she could afford, to, add money to the bigger pot, if you will.
Yeah.
We go out to Colorado, spend Christmas with my parents. I haven't seen my parents at the time. I hadn't seen my parents in 5 years, I think. And I'm seeing my brothers, my brother Christopher, my brother James, and my sister, her husband, and then our 4 kids and their 5. We're renting this Airbnb. My youngest, Jeremiah, is just a baby, and we're spending Christmas in Colorado, which it didn't snow, surprisingly, but it was a weird. Colorado's got a weird weather.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Air, so it's like 70 degrees during the day, and then it's like 30 at night.
Oh yeah,
it's fucking intense. So we celebrate Christmas together. We spent about a week down there. Me and my dad go to Guitar Center like we always did when I was younger. Checked out a couple of record stores, and one was called Witch Pit, I believe, and it was in Colorado. And they had a mascot called the Breastronaut, and it was just an old man with an astronaut helmet with breasts. And they said that they had found this in an abandoned house, and that became basically their mascot. Got a couple cassettes there. My dad got, I think, The Who live, like some bootleg.
Ooh.
Yeah, from there. It was really fun. So we go back home. The whole time we were out there in Colorado, we were masked up, except for when we were together, in the house. But it was a fantastic time. So go back to Ohio. Eventually, they release the COVID vaccines.
Mm-hmm.
The mRNA vaccines, Moderna and Pfizer. So I go to Walgreens. I get the first vaccine. I have to schedule out the second vaccine.
Right.
And then eventually I get the booster.
Yeah.
My wife, at the time, she was weary about the vaccine.
Yeah.
A lot of people were.
Yeah.
But, and there were a lot of people around me that also got the vaccine.
Did your kids?
My 2 oldest boys do.
I mean, did they get them immediately, or did you
No,
wait?
because we had to wait. Right, they didn't approve the vaccine for children until a little later.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and then
My brother and sister are full. They're adults technically, legal age. So.
Yeah, so my 2 oldest kids are vaccinated. My 5-year-old, we're gonna get him vaccinated soon.
Okay.
And they did not, like, the needle is so teeny tiny you barely feel it, and they had no complaints. Right. And Jason, who's in and out of hospitals sometimes, at least once a year because of his asthma, it didn't affect him. And
not even soreness?
I mean, there was a little bit of soreness, but it
I
went
woke up,
away.
my arm was killing me.
I know that when I got the booster, it knocked me out that day, but the next day I was fine.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The bounce back is very quick.
So this is probably about May or June when I get the vaccine, and then I get boosted and all that stuff like that. So, it is is approaching my time of where I'm about to leave my job and go to where we work now.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is about that, when I applied for this new job, I was talking to my parents a lot. My dad, I talk to him every day. And my dad was watching a lot of Fox News and, was really hyped up on the right-wing media. So he's listening to conservative talk shows, radio shows constantly, and there's a lot of and I'm not speaking for every Christian, but there's a lot of quote-unquote Christians, if you will, that are against this vaccine.
Right. Oh,
And
yeah, absolutely.
A lot of conspiracy theorists going around.
Oh, absolutely.
So my dad chose not to get the vaccine, and he also was the caretaker for my brother James, who had Down syndrome, and he did not get the vaccine. My mother worked up at a military base, so she was required to get the vaccine.
Right.
My sister and her husband, they got the vaccine, and my sister's husband had cancer. So he had gone through all that. I don't know if it was radiation or whatever, but he went through it. I believe he is cancer-free. I'm hoping. I think that's from the last time I talked to him. I don't have a good memory, but I believe that before
Well, he's
COVID
still
or
doing good
whatever.
right now, right?
Yes, he's doing
So then
fine.
that's awesome.
But he still was, in a way, immunocompromised. In a way.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Anybody who's been through chemo, they obviously have a little bit
And
of
my brother Christopher, who I love, at the time also was, kind of like my dad, just not really believing the hype, if you will.
Yeah.
So it's about around September. I finally get this link to the job that we work at. I apply for it. I'm excited about my new job. And then I get the news that my brother James is not feeling well. And I instantly knew what it was. Mm-hmm. And that day, they told me that he had COVID. I wrote his eulogy that day.
Yeah.
A week later, he passed. A week or so later. My brother James had Down syndrome. And I don't blame my dad. I really don't. I'm not angry with him. I'm angry at the fact that there was so many, there was so much opposition to the vaccine.
Right.
And there was a news organization like Fox News that had a lot of viewers, and
a
they
lot
were
of power.
constantly, pushing this agenda that, this is government mandated. But so was every other vaccine. You couldn't go to school without a, vaccine for meningitis or whooping cough or whatever.
Right.
So James gets sick. Now, before that, my dad was talking about he didn't know whether or not he wanted to get the vaccine. And someone had basically told him to take ivermectin. Now, ivermectin, there is a dose for humans, a drug for humans for ivermectin, and then there is ones for farm animals, like horses and stuff like that. And they were going to a feed store and getting the liquid ivermectin, which was not, approved by the Food and Drug Administration or what have you that controls that. And they were mixing it with yogurt and eating that. My dad was taking this stuff because he was feeling symptoms of it. My brother Christopher also did. And I'm not demonizing them at all. This is just what had happened. So James gets sick, and he's having a hard time breathing and stuff like that, whatever. He also, I think, off and on had asthma.
Mm-hmm.
So my mom takes him to the hospital. They say, yeah, he's got COVID, and he's also got pneumonia. So those combination, that's
Bad
a death,
combination.
It's basically a death sentence. So,
yeah.
My mom had the vaccine. My brother-in-law, who had cancer, had the vaccine. My sister had the vaccine. They all got COVID, but they did not experience anything like my brother and my dad did. And my brother Christopher did not have the vaccine, and he suffered for a while too. So it all happened in that house, particularly, in that house, but 3 people that had the vaccine recovered fairly compared to the other 2. So during the time that my brother's in the hospital, it's like, my parents are very religious, very conservative and religious. And my mom, a lot of faith. My dad, lots of faith. And I'm not saying in particular whether I have faith or not, because I wouldn't want someone to hear this and go, oh, one way or the other. But it was really hard on my mom because she just lost both her parents the year and the year before that.
Wow.
So now James, I think he was in there about 5 days, and they have to put him on the respirator, right? So they have to put a tube down his throat. Of course, James is scared.
He couldn't breathe on his own.
Yeah, he's scared. He doesn't know what's going to happen.
Absolutely.
And my mom's having to watch this happen because my dad's got COVID. He can't be at the hospital.
Right.
And also at the same time, he's kind of afraid to be there. So my mom...
Why was that, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I think my dad didn't want to see him like that. And the fear was just so much that he didn't want to see his son suffer.
Absolutely.
And so unfortunately, my mom had to be there.
Trooper.
Just like my mom had to be there for her parents or grandparents, my grandparents.
Haven't met you, Mrs. Moore, but
yeah, she's awesome. And no offense to my uncle and my aunt, her brother and sister, but my mom, we lived pretty close to her parents, and she was always there. And my brother was also taking them to doctor's appointments and different things like that. So they were there through the whole thing. So my mom went through that. Now she's watching her son get worse and worse and worse. And I knew it was inevitable. So the day that he got admitted, I wrote my eulogy for my brother because I knew he was going to die. And that was hard.
absolutely.
But before I got the call from my dad to let me know that he passed, I had basically put up a video on my Instagram. I believe it's still there.
Yeah, I've seen it.
And I was just like, this is a real virus, and you might not believe it, and whatever. But whether you believe it or not,
people are dying.
The virus does not care.
Right. Absolutely.
So I know there's a lot of conspiracy and whatever, and I've even had people ask me that found out about it when I got the job at our job, asked me, "Are you sure it was COVID?" But it's like, yeah, the doctor says it was, and I'm more inclined to believe the doctor than Urban Dictionary.
Right.
yeah, you know what I mean?
Some guy off the street who thinks that some
and
guy ate a bat.
someone that gets paid $100,000 a year to voice their opinion on a news show rather than So there's that. I found out that my brother passed not too long, shortly before or after I got the job at Target, my orientation day. So my orientation day, I'm finding out, around that time that
speaking
James
of,
passed.
I don't know if you know this, we all thought you quit.
No, so
we literally all went. We were like, "Oh, this new guy's here," and then you disappeared, and we're like, "Didn't even last." And then you showed back up, and we're like, "Oh,
yeah." So I drove out the first time when my brother passed, and my mom let me know that night, her and my dad, cried and stuff like that. By the way, are we gonna drink this?
Yeah. We're finishing this first, obviously.
Well,
I want to finish this first.
Okay.
This is important.
So I'm driving out to California. Me and my wife are looking at, different landscapes we haven't seen, like driving through Oklahoma, seeing red dirt, and there's a
Right.
lot of beautiful things on the way to California. We get there, and some people in the family are still sick at the house. When we visit my mom at the house, and my brother-in-law and my sister, we're wearing masks because there's still people sick at the house, including my brother, who is still alive, my other brother, who at the time is not as serious about the virus,
Right.
but his brother just passed. So what do you say to him, right?
Oh, absolutely.
You
Yeah.
know.
Like.
So we're staying at a hotel, the Ramada Inn in Barstow, California, where I'm from. And we're going to see my dad. My dad's been admitted into the hospital. I talked to him on the phone. We talked to him outside the hospital on a video chat that we can talk to him on, but none of us are allowed in.
Right.
And unfortunately, my brother Christopher, of course, refuses to tell them what his vaccine, if he got the vaccine or not. He says it's my right, according to HIPAA, that I don't have to whatever. And they're going, okay, well, you can't be here because we have patients that if they get sick, with COVID, and it spreads, whatever. So he can't go up there. My mom just, of course, lost her son and was there the whole time that he was in the hospital. But for some reason, they're not letting her back in there with my dad. So she doesn't even get to visit him. She talks to him on the phone, but that's about it. During this time,
video call.
yeah.
Okay.
During this time, too, I'm calling up my dad, and I'm like, hey, Dad, unfortunately, they're not letting me up there, but what can I get you? Can I get you anything? He goes, cookies from Walmart. They had, some holiday cookies or whatever, Halloween cookies or whatever. He wanted those.
The little frosting ones.
And they have a Del Taco out there, which is from Barstow. I get him a chocolate shake from there. So he can taste everything or whatever, and at no point did I think anything was bad was going to happen to him.
I hope you understand that this is making me tear up a little bit.
I'm
too.
sorry.
No, it's fine.
Hey.
No.
So, I have to go back to work. So we end up driving back home, kiss my mom, love her, and all that stuff like that. I told my dad, you're going to get out. When you get out, I'll come back. So it's about maybe a week or two later, and no, it's about a week later, actually, less than a week. I'm working, a good friend of ours, Maurice, at our job, is training me. Our previous manager, David, is, I'm sorry about your loss. Hope all is well. If you need anything, let me know.
I remember that's the first day that I kind of recognized you, and we kind of
Yeah. At the time, also, because my brother had was in the hospital, whatever, when I knew that, I had shaved my face and come in around that time, too.
Oh, I remember.
I had a long beard. And so I go out there. I don't really visit anybody, any friends or anything like that, because that's not what I'm there for.
Right.
We drive back to Ohio, and then I found out about my dad. But this is how I found out. My sister calls me, and she goes, hey, Dad's not going to make it. Now, during that whole time, I'm thinking Dad's getting better. Dad's okay. He's just ornery.
Right.
Like he usually is.
Right.
So my sister says, Dad's not going to make it. Do you want me to buy your plane ticket right now? And I said, yes. My wife drives me to the airport. I'm at the airport, and I'm currently waiting to get on my flight.
Mm-hmm.
My sister and my mom video call me, and they go, hey, do you want to say goodbye to Dad? So they put the video towards my dad. I barely recognize him. He's lost a lot of weight because he hasn't been eating the whole time. He just can't eat.
Now, how much of a time gap is this, just for everybody who's listening, between when the last time you saw him with your brother? Like, how much of a time gap would you say that this is?
Well, I mean, because the thing is, I didn't get to see them.
Right.
Because I saw them during Christmas, right?
Right.
during COVID season.
Well, I meant
Right.
like video because you said you video called your dad on the occasion
This
when he was
like
in the hospital.
maybe 5 or 6 days apart.
Okay. And completely different from those
completely
5 to
different.
6 days.
And by that time, my dad wasn't able to speak because he just wasn't able to talk, and he was writing down what he wanted to say and whatever. And I think the last thing my sister said was like, "What are you trying to say?" And of course, he's going like this because he's trying to get it out, and my
Right.
mom's not getting what he's saying.
Yeah.
And he just says tired. Up until that point, my dad was 72 when he passed. I think 72. Would jump around like a wild man. He was never really sick. So this was the first time my dad was sick. And I mean, even though I did see my dad slow down, this was the first time where it was just like, what the fuck? So they video call me. I say, "Hey, Dad, I love you. I'll see you soon." But I did get to say goodbye, and I love him. Get on the plane. We finally take off. I'm sitting next to a nurse and a doctor. They're both married. And the nurse starts telling me, she goes, "It's awful, the pandemic, because there's so much misinformation out there." And she goes, "Everybody that we deal with wishes they would have got the vaccine when they're there. And everybody's afraid they're going to die." And she goes, "And you know what? Around that time, 80 or 90% of the people that they had met died." Now, that's not everywhere, obviously.
Obviously, yeah.
They could have been dealing with more elderly patients or people that were immunocompromised versus young, healthy people. That could have been, the truth, the whole matter. So I land, I have a stop in Arizona before I go to California. As soon as I land, I get a ding on my phone. Dad's gone. So unfortunately, I did not get to make it there when he passed. Before he passed. My brother-in-law picks me up at the airport in Las Vegas, because I landed, I think, in Las Vegas instead of California. By the way, if you're going to fly out to California and you live in Dayton, like where we live, go to Columbus, fly to Ontario. The tickets are cheaper than LAX. The tickets are cheaper in Vegas, but maybe by $20 or $30. And where I was in California, it was just a lot better. So fly to Ontario. Their airports are also a lot easier to get through than Las Vegas. Las Vegas is very stringent, and TSA in Las Vegas, they're not the nicest people in the world. But, at the same time, they got to, deal with a lot of people that go through there. Ontario is kind of a smaller airport, but they're genuinely a lot of nice people that work there. Everybody that I've ever met at Ontario is wonderful. I don't see the same people, but you know what I mean.
Right.
People in California are nicer than people in Vegas.
Yeah.
So I land in Vegas. My brother-in-law picks me up. I go to see my mom. Of course, my mom's devastated. She just lost her son.
Right.
And now, like a week or two later, she just lost her husband.
Yeah.
So it's a very sort of like, I flew out there instead of drove. So it's a very insane sort of like, what do we do moment. I'm still in shock.
Right.
And of course, there are moments when I did cry, but at the same,
when did it finally hit you? Landing or in Arizona?
His funeral a few months later. The reason being is because at the time I had to be strong for my mom and my sister, and of course the grandkids that were there, because my sister and brother-in-law were living with my parents on the property that they were on at the time. So I had to make sure that my mom was okay. That was my number one priority. Even though James had passed and my dad had passed, and that affected me deeply, I was more concerned about my mom. I had to take care of her. And so I did what I could, and of course I had to fly back. I was able to extend the time a couple of days, and then I'm about to fly out of Las Vegas. Spirit Airlines canceled my flight. So I'm like, I just got this new job. Now I'm going to get fired.
Right.
We were able to stay at the Luxor Hotel, and it was $40 a night. For some reason, the Luxor in Las Vegas, which is one of the nicest hotels, nicest casinos.
Oh yeah.
It's also connected to Excalibur and
Yep.
MGM, I believe.
Yes.
It's a wonderful. If you go to stay anywhere, the Luxor is really nice. Carrot Top performs there regularly. It's a great hotel. $40 a night. My sister was able to get me the room. I was able to stay there. Couldn't really sleep, but at least I had a night there. And then the next day,
A place to lay your head, basically.
yeah, and then a fly out. I couldn't sleep. I get to the airport. I pass out at the airport and I miss my flight. So I tell the lady, I said, hey, I'm sorry. I didn't get much sleep. Both my brother and my dad passed away 2 weeks apart. And I'm returning home from that. I haven't got much sleep. I just passed out and I missed my flight. She goes, oh, I'm so sorry. Prints me out another ticket for the next flight and she goes,
Wow.
here you go. So I'm able to get on to the next flight, which was great.
That's fantastic. I mean, not a lot of people will
What
just do that.
airline was that? United Airlines.
Not a lot of people will do that.
Yeah,
I mean,
so the lady in Las Vegas, I believe, for United Airlines. And no, what it was it was my layover flight in Denver.
Okay.
So United Airlines in Denver, fantastic group of people. So my brother James and my dad both die from COVID-driven pneumonia. There are people that have told them, take ivermectin, do this, do that. None of it works. Anybody that's gotten sick with COVID around the area, if they haven't passed, they were sick as dogs. And everybody that was vaccinated around my dad, my brother, whatever, they got sick, sure, but not to the extent that they did, not to be hospitalized.
Right.
They were able to stay home. I believe my brother is vaccinated now, my younger brother. And when we drove out there, my wife still hadn't gotten vaccinated yet. And at the time, I was kind of not really pissed off at her because I knew there was a lot of misinformation going around. And also, the way a lot of African-American people have felt about the government and trusting them and vaccines and stuff like that. She had every right to maybe feel uneasy.
Yeah.
But during that moment, she was just like, okay. So she got her first vaccine when we drove out there, and a couple weeks later, she got her second. So, that's that. So I was able to finally do a funeral for my brother and my dad the same day. In February, they were buried. My dad was an ex-Marine, so he was buried in a memorial for military next to my brother James. So that's great. When I went out there a second time, though, because I did between the funeral and the death of my dad, I went out there with my mom because I'm a musician, so was my dad. So I was able to sort of price certain things out and help my mom financially at the time, because my dad, he had, I think, a insurance policy, but they took forever to give her anything.
They always do.
And I don't even think they still paid her like they should have. Luckily for us, because my dad was an ex-military person, I don't know if she got discounts or certain things for free for his burial. I believe something was. I can't remember exactly what it was. Luckily, though, the military did look after my mom, at least for that aspect. Of course, I missed the ceremony, the flag, the taps, and all the stuff like that they did for my dad. So it wasn't until the funeral that I got really emotional and stressed out. And I had a story for my dad. I had a eulogy for my brother. But the eulogy I wrote for my dad was something that was like I had already cried for my brother. And I was like, well, it is what it is. Wrote the eulogy. I wasn't expecting my dad to pass.
Right.
So
that was more
it was a little harder.
Take, if you will.
So with my brother passing, it was easier to take. With my dad, it wasn't, because I was like, nah, he'll make it. And honestly, I think that he probably would have made it if it weren't the fact that James had already passed. Because my dad refused the ventilator. He refused any help.
Do you think it was more of a
I want to go join James.
really?
Yep.
I was gonna say, do you think it was more of a heartbreak?
Yeah.
So do you think?
Because, I mean, my dad's sitting alone in a hospital, can't see his family, and his thought is,
my son just died.
yeah, and it might be my fault.
So
If
there's
you
a
can
lot
imagine.
of self-blame and honestly,
Probably.
death by heartbreak kind of really
yeah.
kicked it in.
Yeah. Because,
COVID
like,
didn't-
with
if
my...
COVID wasn't what killed him, it was
Yeah.
heartbreak.
Because the thing is that it's COVID-driven pneumonia. My brother James has Down syndrome. He's 30. The average life of, like, someone with Down syndrome is, like, 45.
Oh yeah, it's
50.
not long at all.
And he actually, I think he said they made it longer than they thought he would, you know.
Wow.
But it's, what is it? Lost my train of thought. But, you know, so dad passes, whatever. It's still, to me, I still think about, like, arguments, still have dreams of talking to my dad or whatever. Emotionally, I'm good. I don't harp on it. Every once in a while, like if I sing Simple Man by Leonard
There's triggers.
Skinner, or, you know, there's certain songs that still get me and make me think about them. Norm Macdonald passed away around the same time my brother and my dad did. So there was a Dave Chappelle special that at the end of it was a tribute to Norm Macdonald. So anytime I listen to anything that Norm Macdonald does, I think of my parents, or my dad and my brother mainly. I'm okay, though. I've accepted it, and I've moved on with my life. I know it's a lot harder for my mom, because that was her whole life.
Right.
But she lost her dad, then her mom, then her son, then her husband.
Right.
One right after another.
And I mean, you're not supposed to bury your kids.
No.
No.
And that was one of the things she told me, too.
Right. And that's as a parent,
Mm-hmm.
both of us,
Mm-hmm.
like, you can't imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, if I'm trying not to get too emotional
Yeah.
and think about it, but you know, I would rather sell my life if I could to take it instead.
Yeah.
So it got, like, you could only think. And now, before we get into this beer, I do want to say that it had to have been difficult to talk about this a little bit.
No, not really.
Well, I want you to know.
No, I mean, borderline, yeah.
Yeah, I want you to know. Even let's avoid the people out there who are listening right now that I've known you, I want to say, for the better part of a year.
Yeah.
And you're one of the most strongest, self-driven, intelligent men that I've ever met. And that
Jeez, let me hide my boner.
and that if I could meet your dad,
Mm-hmm.
I would love to shake his hand and say that he made a genius of a child.
You listened to the whole story, though, about the part where he's no longer here.
Yes.
Okay.
As I said,
I'm
if
just
I
making
could,
sure you're paying
if
attention.
I could meet him,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
to your mother, who, if you ever get to watch this podcast,
If you ever do. Hopefully not this episode. It's kind of rough.
you have a terrific son who I have the benefit. You're making me get emotional over here. Who I
Don't be a
get the
pussy.
privilege and the honor to call my best friend and get to do this amazing podcast with. So I want to, before we get into this beer, thank you for everything you've done and for sharing this. I think that this is going to be, like our other episode on mental health, I definitely think that a lot of people are going to relate to this episode because a lot of people struggled. I mean, when my parents got COVID for the first time, I was terrified for my grandmother, who is in her 80s, and was very scary. I have had the luxury, and we'll go that far, to say that I have not lost anybody to COVID. But I couldn't imagine, especially with the way you had to go through it, switching jobs and then back to back. I would have not been able to keep it together like the way you have. You have been a trooper and a soldier through the whole situation.
But in a way, it was almost like a survival thing for me.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
because-
You immediately kick into fight or flight. You
Right.
immediately fought through it.
Yeah.
I
'Cause even though
am
my
not
s-
that strong,
Yeah.
and I'll admit that immediately.
Because even though my sister is older and my brother-in-law is, my brother Christopher is younger, my mom's obviously not significantly older. She's just,
Oh, because she's definitely watching.
yeah, if she does watch, which, Mom, I'm sorry if that makes you cry. The story, not your age.
You don't care if it makes her cry about her age.
No, my mom's a trooper. So another thing too, one of the pastors that we used to watch as a child, I went to their church off Crenshaw Boulevard in Los Angeles, was a pastor named Fred Price. And one of the things that kind of made my dad think was when Fred Price Sr., who was our pastor, caught COVID and died. He was 89 years old.
Right. Oh yeah. Jeez.
So, but still, like a young man at heart throughout the whole time until it could be. And I understand that certain people obviously still aren't vaccinated.
Yeah.
And I understand why, because I understand why my dad didn't get vaccinated.
I mean,
as at the end of the day, there was a bit of me that was mad, but not as much as I was just bummed out.
right. And I'm sorry if you're not vaccinated now, and I'm gonna be that guy.
Okay, be that
Don't
guy.
be a fucking idiot.
Yeah,
Get vaccinated.
yeah,
It's now been 3 years.
yeah. My dad had the
People
polio
aren't dying from the vaccines. They're not growing third fucking arms.
No, their balls aren't swelling up.
Like, prime example.
Yeah.
And there are probably millions of other examples. People die.
Yeah.
I mean, don't be a fucking idiot. Just
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah, and the thing is that it's just when we're at a certain point of quote unquote herd immunity or whatever they want to say,
Right.
then we can start say, goodbye to COVID and move on with our lives.
Because in all honesty, this is exactly like the flu. Back in the day, the flu used to kill people.
Yeah,
And now we look at it, I'm like, it's just a fucking
yeah.
sneeze. I
Like
mean,
I've never gotten a flu shot in my life,
no, I think I've had like 4.
but how many people do we know of that are elderly that get a flu shot?
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Because when they were kids,
Yeah.
their parents died from the
And they
flu.
recommend people also with their immunocompromised to get flu shots. And, stuff
I
like that.
get that, but like,
But
it's-
I'm sure there's going to be somebody that sees this or hears this. One of the 8 people that listen to this, if one of them, and you know who I'm just kidding. I'm not calling anybody out.
yeah, we are.
But you're probably curious about it or whatever. I mean, don't believe the news and what you read online.
No,
Talk to a doctor.
Well, yeah, and like, there's a lot
Talk
of
to a
people out
nurse.
there, and I get skepticism about shots because
Mm-hmm.
I'll be the first one to say that when they're like, "Oh, we made shots," I was not first in line.
Right.
I wasn't 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
My parents got the vaccine, and I was like, my parents were even a little delayed when they were eligible. I want to say that I was another 4 months till I got it, because I'm like, I'm not taking some brand new fucking shot.
Yeah.
I want to at least test the waters. If I get it, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
It's fine. And I'm pretty sure I would have to ask Hannah, she's upstairs. I'm pretty sure I got it before I got my vaccine.
Yeah.
And it was hell.
Yeah.
It was terrible. I felt like I was dying.
Yeah. And there's people I know of that are friends of mine to this day back home that don't have the vaccine.
Oh yeah. Well, there's people
And-
where we work who have it.
And there's people I know that they were skeptical of their children getting vaccinated. Now,
What was
I don't
that?
mean for COVID, I mean for
Yeah,
anything.
we can pause it. What the fuck was that?
I don't know.
Okay. Oh well.
I was skeptical when my kids were getting vaccinated, especially after Jason was born, and they were giving his first shots, and I was like, "What are you doing?" And they're like, "We're giving him his first immunizations," and I was like, "Ugh, I don't know how I feel about this," because at the time there was a lot of misinformation about autism, and different things like that.
I
things
remember that now.
Yeah, that was during that time, and I mean, there's things that I don't have to worry about with my children because I know they're vaccinated. I know that they can still get sick for certain things, but I know they're better protected. And the thing is that I even had this thought in my own head. Even if I don't believe in whatever's going on,
Right.
to its fullest extent, I would want to protect others around me.
Yeah, and
that was one of the biggest reason why I did it.
Right.
But yeah, so I lost a brother who was 30. He was born in 1990, so 31 years old. It was just after his birthday, so it was like a couple weeks after his birthday. And then,
your father
lost my dad. So, and was it December 20th is his birthday? So, and then of course we had to go through my brother's birthday before. Thanksgivings and Christmases, of course, are not the same.
No, absolutely not.
One of the reasons also probably why I don't like being on the phone is that my dad and I talked for 2 hours a day, mainly him talking, and I just don't like being on the phone.
Right.
It's probably why I don't answer or text as much. That's just I don't like being on the phone.
Well, it's
I'd rather be in person. I can
Right.
hold that too. I can hold a conversation with you way better in person than on the phone.
That's why this podcast exists.
That's why this podcast exists. But if I have a suggestion, advice for anybody, if you are stressed out or whatever, talk to somebody that went to school for a living.
Yeah.
Talk
to
study
educated
infectious diseases and
talk to educated
Yeah.
people, not somebody who says they know things. Someone who gets paid.
yeah.
to
If you
talk about
hear
this stuff.
if you
Don't
hear,
even listen to us.
yeah, if you hear someone say a lot of people are saying, but they don't have any references,
Right.
that's not a person to
Like
listen to.
and for example, I say get the vaccine. Don't even listen to me. Take my advice and go, hey, this dumbass that I listened to on a podcast called Poop and Laugh
Yeah,
is like telling me this shit. What do you feel about it?
yeah,
Like, take your information and go to somebody who is educated, paid, went to school, went to college for this shit, and be like, I heard this.
yeah,
What's the truth?
yeah.
Don't just take somebody's words and go, well, Joe Schmo says that if I lick my own ass and then piss upside down, that I'm gonna be COVID free. Like, don't listen to
If
stuff.
only it were that easy.
Right?
By the way, last episode we talked about shows that ended and
Yes.
and different things like that. So, for me, a couple of things I do, like as far as my grandparents, because they passed, my brother, James, miss him. My dad, miss him. What I do to remember them and with my kids, The Simpsons. My grandpa especially loved The Simpsons. They were also, my grandparents were both artists. My grandfather taught art for 30 years at a college. So I like drawing. I don't draw often, but I like drawing every once in a while.
Right.
And during the pandemic with my kids, I would show, like, we would have an art class. We'd have PE and stuff like that at home at the beginning of the pandemic. So those are things I did with them. Also, my brother James, his favorite shows were like The Three Stooges, Laurel and Hardy, and Marx Brother movies that came out in the 30s and 40s. And these are movies that I still enjoy to this day. If I have a recommendation, there's a movie called Night at the Opera. It came out in the late 30s. Groucho Marx, Chico, Harpo. It's a great, funny, really funny movie. It's where I get a lot of my humor, my sense of humor from. Old Simpsons episodes. And with my dad, it's like old westerns and rock and roll and stuff like that. That's what I do as far as like sharing that with my kids as a remembrance for my father. So check those out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Absolutely. Now to step off, if I'm correct,
Yes.
this last one
Yes.
is a good send off
Yes.
to the end of the night.
This is a Kentucky Bourbon Barrel Ale. These
Okay,
are
slide this damn thing over
this
to me.
ale. Yes.
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah. This
Wait a minute.
is very hard to see.
Oh, it is not a twist off, which means, Kurt, if you
Have a lighter?
go over near you, you have a bottle cap opener.
I do.
Over somewhere near you. It's near the pig.
It's near the
It's
pig.
black. Yours is black. It's over there somewhere. Yeah.
Okay.
You have your own. It's a bottle cap opener.
Are these shit and giggle bottle openers?
Yes, they are.
No, they're not, because they don't have the logo on them.
Shut up. They're going to.
Shut the fuck up. All right. But they should. That would be great.
They're going to. I got to get the vinyl cap worker opening.
Ooh.
So are we going straight out of the bottle or are we going for a pour?
Might as well.
We're going for a pour? Or are we going...
No, go straight out of the bottle if it's in a glass.
Well, hang on.
Yep.
As for this episode, to you, your
Sure.
brother,
Yep.
and your father,
Yep.
rest
Whoever
in
they are.
peace.
Never met them.
Cheers.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
So-
Have you had this?
Yes.
This is...
Anytime I
No.
go down to the Oregon Express.
I am not a bourbon guy.
In Oregon, the Oregon down in Dayton, you can get this.
I am not a bourbon guy.
Yeah.
I'm not a dark liquor
It's not a bourbon.
Yeah, I know, but it's the bourbon barrel, so it has that woody taste to it. I am not a dark liquor man. I am not a dark beer man. And
good.
if I am correct, I'm gonna go. I want to see color here.
I
Okay,
don't see
so it's
color.
a little clearer.
The only colors I see are red, white, and blue, Brian.
Oh, absolutely. Don't leave that for waste. But so coming off of wow, this is a fucking fantastic ale. Coming off of a very touchy subject.
Yes,
Let's
yes.
get on the lighter end of things. Now, I know for a lot of people.
Brian, I do have to pee. Kurt has to pee. That's,
All right, well, we're going to take a quick commercial break.
Yes. That's
Brought
a great
to you
idea.
by today's sponsor.
Me and Brian love using Anchor. It's the easiest way to make a podcast. We can edit on the go. It's a free system. And then after we're done, we can just straight upload to Spotify and anywhere you listen to a podcast. Go ahead and head over to anchor.fm and you'll see what we're talking about. Thank you, listeners, for taking advantage of any sponsor that is a part of Shit and Giggle podcast.
Absolutely.
We have more sponsors to come. We have one from Manscaped and a couple of other companies have reached out to us, which is fantastic because we haven't been doing this podcast that long.
No, yeah, definitely thank you to all the people out there. Thank you to Anchor.
Yeah, our
who's-
first sponsor.
Yeah, for definitely making this happen. Oh my gosh, I forgot to tell you.
Uh-oh.
Before we get into the thing, I was at the gas station on the way home because
Okay.
I stopped at my parents today. I was at the gas station around the corner from work. So the one side, it's a Speedway. The other side, it's that like off-brand gas station.
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
I stopped at the off-brand. I was in a sweatshirt.
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't know. Oh, it's on the back of my chair. And he looks at the back and he goes, I have an Anchor podcast myself.
Oh, cool.
And I was like, what? And he goes, yeah. He's like, what's your podcast called? I said, Shit and Giggle. He goes, no way. He scans the back of my sweatshirt. He pops it up and he goes, this sounds fun. I'm going to listen to this. I was like,
that's great.
thanks.
He's
It
going to
was just
hate this
cool.
episode.
Yeah, Huh?
He's going to hate this episode.
Oh, yeah, he will.
Oh,
He was
man.
some like 45-year-old man. It was
Yeah, oh, yeah, he's definitely going to hate this episode.
it was really cool though. I was like, what's the coincidence? Not even just somebody who had a podcast that uses the same platform as we do.
By
It
the
was
way,
cool.
another note too. I work, so I'm in a band called Invisible Face. I've mentioned that a couple times. Our engineer for this album that we're working on, which we should be finishing up the final touches in January, and then I'll let everybody know when the album's ready to be released and when we're going to be doing shows. So that'll be great.
Which you can get a discount for his album at a price of 100%.
Yeah.
For you got,
Wait, doesn't that mean free? No.
no, at 100% cost. Like it'll
Yeah.
cost you 100% of the cost.
Yeah.
yeah.
We're talking about cassettes and vinyl records too.
No
Yeah.
way.
Uh,
You understand that we're gonna have to get a vinyl, and we will.
Oh, yeah.
we will post it up here
Yeah,
on
definitely.
the podcast.
I mean, what
Absolutely.
we're probably going to have to do is probably put a guitar hanger right here. Like I have a guitar there. And then you could probably put something there that's like what you love. Perfect. Shelves for your action figures.
Done.
Boom.
In the garage. So next
I
time we
have-
will have another update for our
I have
podcast.
about 5 or 6 guitar hangers, so we can put
Absolutely.
one up there.
Oh my gosh,
drywall.
I have a gift for you for Christmas then.
Don't.
I just saw something on Facebook that would be perfect for that. Okay.
Okay. But anyway.
So to finish out, I know this is a little bit of a long episode.
Sorry.
Yes.
The engineer.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Said that the biggest thing for him, he's defunct, by the way, if you're looking for a tremendous lover of music and the craft and somebody that can produce and master your music. Also, he's got great insight and great advice. Check out Mike from Defunct Studios in Stowe, Ohio. Out of anybody that I've worked with before as far as music, he is tremendous.
Right.
And he's a great guy, but he told me that word of mouth has been better. I hope I'm not misquoting him, but than advertising. So,
absolutely.
So getting around and telling people that you've heard this podcast and that you
Please.
like it, and then sharing our podcast or links or whatever on your own social media, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, could grow this podcast.
I try my best, and in all honesty, this is going to be terrible to say. I don't really care if we get more people, but I want more people to know because I don't really care if we get more listeners. Granted, was it cool? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I care more that I'm able to make someone's day better.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's my biggest thing, and that's why I wanted to make this podcast. I feel like me and Kurt, the conversations, we are very funny when we talk together, and we can talk like it's a normal conversation. It doesn't even feel forced. Like, honestly, I'm very stage fright on the occasion when it comes to large groups of people, and this just comes out smooth. And so it's more of a fact of I would love to make somebody's workday go by better. And so the fact that if you guys are able to share this, get the t-shirts. If anybody wants a t-shirt, you message me. If you want a sweatshirt, you message me. If you want a thermos, you message me. I just ended up, I don't know if you know this, I don't think I told you. I have 35 stainless steel thermoses upstairs and cups that are about to be shit and giggle. You want one, email me. We'll make them, and we'll have to charge shipping depending on where you're at if you want one. But obviously, the shirts I'm wearing now, we already have people getting them. But the biggest thing is I want someone to either, just need a laugh or want to laugh during the day and to get on our podcast and get that and then have a better day.
Yeah, sure.
And so,
absolutely.
Yeah, but tell your friends, post on Facebook, watch our video, share it with people. Listen to it on a car ride to work when you're carpooling. It's great. But to finish out this large episode, I know that it was a very touchy subject at the beginning. COVID often is for a lot of people nowadays. What was one good thing that you could probably pinpoint that came out of COVID for you? I'll kickstart it.
I got one. Go ahead.
Mine was my wife. I, as to incriminate myself, was not a very good man, lover, husband, or boyfriend. Before I met my wife, I'd been previously married. I've had an array of significant others, and I would say that I wasn't a great man beforehand. I was very self-centered, believe it or not, and didn't really care for the other person in a sense, kind of. But when I met my wife, she is the most hard-headed, stubborn, big cojones woman that I think I've ever met in my whole entire life. And she being stuck for months on end with a woman like that kind of made me look at she put me in my place, really, and it definitely made me a better man, and especially being able to like spend time with somebody. I remember when we started and we got our first apartment, there's pictures of me and her. We it was a private renter. We got to move into our apartment, and I was moving up to Columbus, so I asked the private renter, I'm like, hey, look, I'm moving up here. Can I put my stuff, even though it's not done yet, the apartment, in the apartment? They needed to put new carpet in there, paint and everything. I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, and if I paint the apartment myself, will we get a discount? She's like, absolutely. So we ended up moving in early, and we would stay nights over there because I would sleep at her house on the weekends with her parents there, and then would, during the week, stay in the apartment while we painted, me and her. We would sleep on a blow-up mattress playing Uno and playing Cards Against Humanity in there, and it was one of the best times of my life. So I would definitely say for me it'd be my wife, getting her out of COVID. Having the time to spend with somebody with no other distractions definitely was my benefit. What about you?
So, I was a workaholic, still am to a degree. When I worked at my previous job, I worked 84 hours a week, 7 days a week, especially during the summer. And if I could get overtime, I was on top of it. But that overtime helped buy a car. It helped, advance us from, because when we were in California, I think when we did our taxes, I think I made $7,000 or $9,000 the previous year. And when I moved up here and I got a job, I made $48,000 that year, which is a significant difference.
Significant, yeah.
I think it was 48 or 53, something like that. A lot more than before. That enabled us to sort of grow. We had a couple more kids. And then during the pandemic, my youngest, Jeremiah, I got to spend quality time with him. Not just coming home, and then being tired, by 6 or 7 o'clock and not having the energy to keep up with the kids. During that time, I was, we had to homeschool them because the schools were shut down.
Right.
So they had class with their class, but then we also did physical education together. We had music. We had art. I did things with them that I knew that I wanted them to know about. I also read them books on Frederick Douglass, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Harriet Tubman, Isaac Newton, Einstein, Michael Jordan, all sorts of different, people throughout history and their journey. Martin Luther King, if I didn't mention him. And, these were things and experiences that, they're probably not going to get in school, especially because, politically in the world, everybody's trying to control what people listen to, what people read, what books are banned. Mm-hmm. And I want them to know both parts of their history because they're half black and half white. So I want them to know everything on both sides. And I want them to grow up knowing that these were things that happened, but also this is our present time and what we could do now to, change the future. And maybe I'm raising future presidents or future NASCAR drivers. I don't know. Either way, they'll have a better understanding of the world. They won't be into when I was a kid, Native Americans were, we hung out with Indians and we had Thanksgiving. We didn't give them smallpox or wipe out an entire, So I let them know that I was able to get closer to my kids. I was also able to get closer to my wife. At the time, her mom had just moved out and it was just us. And so we learned to compromise. We learned to get over each other's frustrations. And I was able to also recognize if my wife was upset or if there were things I was doing to irritate her, I worked on them. And, so, I mean, even though COVID, of course, in 2021, it took my brother, it took my dad. It was the best time with my kids and my wife. And I probably would not have had that if it weren't for COVID.
Right.
So, I mean, it's terrible what's happened in the whole world. Everything's shut down. But it made me realize what was really important in life. That's why I praise my wife all the time and I talk about my kids all the time, because I know that anything could happen.
Right.
Anything could shut down the world, no matter what, And, so when I do have time and I'm not in my own head and stuff like that, I love playing video games with my kids. I love sharing music with them. And I probably don't spend as much time with my wife as I should, unlike the pandemic when I was always around her. But I appreciate her more
Absolutely.
than I ever did, simply because when I was home and she was still had to work and I was with the kids doing dishes, laundry, trying to keep the house clean, you get to see sort of like, oh, wow, it's not as easy
No.
as you would think. So,
Right.
Some people are like, yeah, I come home and my husband or my wife or my significant other, they, them, whatever, are home. And I work all day and the house is not kept up. And then you go, okay, well, that's not every single day. It might seem like a mess. But then you have to handle it and you go, I just cleaned this living room. I just washed these dishes. I just washed their clothes.
Right.
And they have accidents and, you start to understand your significant other. I think I'm glad in a way that things shut down so that I could experience, and see through my wife's eyes and walk a mile in her size 7 shoes. Size 7, I believe? Yeah. Size 7. She's 5'2".
Well, I will say, to end this out, anybody out there who is still skeptical, talk to someone who knows what they're talking about. Don't believe us. Don't believe the news. Don't believe some guy that you know for years and his opinion. Get knowledgeable facts. Get factual facts. And like we ended it out, I know that a lot of people have had a lot of heart and a lot of hard times through this pandemic that's still going on now for its 3 years, soon to be 4. Look at the good. There has been a lot of good things that come out of it. I wouldn't have gotten this job, let's be clear, if it wasn't for this pandemic.
Yeah, I have to say the same thing.
I will say, I don't know about you, it's a good damn job for our age. Is that me?
Yeah. Draw every once in a while.
Right. But after we ended out, Kurt's got a special gift for everybody. But I want to thank you, Kurt, for this episode.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank
it's
you. It's
heartfelt. Too. We don't do a lot of these ones. I know our title is Shit and Giggle, but we do have the time where it is serious and poop, and that's fine. But because every time we need to be that way. Go out and check us out on YouTube. Shit and Giggle Podcast, all one word, no spaces. 4 words, Shit and Giggle Podcast. Include the podcast in there. No spaces, all one word. You will find us, people who are having trouble.
Yeah, so instead of Shit and Giggle Podcast, it'll be Shit and Giggle Podcast.
Yeah, Shit and Giggle Podcast. If you want to find us on Facebook, SHTANDGIGGLE. If you want to email us, shitandgiggles11@gmail.com.
11?
11.
Stop. What?
11.
Why is Shit and Giggle 11?
My lucky number.
Did you try Shit and Giggle at?
I did.
And it was taken.
Yes.
Shit and Giggle 2?
Yes.
3?
Yes.
4?
No.
5?
No.
6?
No.
So you just put...
Anyway.
11's my lucky number.
Check us out on Instagram. Shit and Giggle. And, check us out on everything. Now, Kurt, as our new segment that I think I want to end it on every episode. Poems with Kurt.
Poems with Kurt. That's very good. I like that. If we could have like some jingle bell music going on with this one, like a like jingle bells
Absolutely.
behind it.
Here, do you want me to set you up?
Okay, no. We can do it on the.
Yeah, but I want to line it up so you have a rhythm.
Yeah, but I won't be able to concentrate if you're doing that. Yeah, I won't be able to.
Go ahead.
'Twas the holiday season, with Christmas in the air, with Brian's blonde tips and Kurt's long brown hair. Sitting down to record a podcast for their friends, hoping that whatever they said would not offend. As they talked and drank their beer,
Yes.
they hoped to spread a message of holiday cheer.
Oh.
And to the listeners, all three to be exact, we hope you enjoy this like your favorite holiday snack.
And to kick off the holiday season of Christmas and whatever you celebrate out there, to all a good night. And I hope you enjoyed this episode.
Thanks for listening.
Cheers, buddy.
Cheers.